Yo, what is crack-a-lack, welcome back to another episode of Ridge Runners Live. Tonight we are joined by the second place finisher of the JFK 50 miler who ran a blistering time of 6 hours, 22 minutes on that course. Her time was the fourth fastest time in JFK history, and that's 59 years of history for those keeping track at home. Coming to us all the way from Columbus, Ohio, Sarah Beale, what's going on?
Not much. Just hanging out with Jackson.
We're super excited that you're back on the show with us, and we're super excited Jackson is also making a second appearance on Ridge Runners Live. So big shout out to Jackson as well for joining us.
He's excited to be here, as you can tell.
For those of you that don't know, my name is Wesley Harton, and joining me tonight is the bearded wonder himself, Nick Voss. How's it going?
We're doing good. We're doing good. You know, just the week after Turkey Day, so just trying to, I guess, get moving again.
Yeah, aren't we all? And let's just kind of start off by getting moving a little bit by talking about what is everyone drinking tonight. Sarah, you go first.
I'm keeping it pretty classic and with the Mystic Mama from Athens.
That's a great choice, and I think we almost could have a tally on how many times you've actually had that on the show as well. I think it's almost probably been every single time
I
you've
think
joined
you
us.
can guess at this point.
Which is awesome. Maybe they should sponsor you. We'll kind of continue to poke and prod as we will. Nick, what are you drinking?
I've got a root beer float milk stout here. This is from Weldworks Brewing Company, just up north, kind of near Fort Collins, Colorado.
That's awesome. And I've got the Uinta Brewing Company Trader IPA tonight, so another good one to dive into. Let's just start things off, with how we normally go into it. You can find the show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We have a Strava club as well, filled with so many incredible runners like Sarah herself. But Sarah, I want to start off before we dive too deep into JFK this year. I want to talk about why you chose to run this race for a second time. What was the appeal to come back to this historic race?
Last year, it's a lot of things really. Last year, it was my first ever ultra. So it was almost like my year anniversary with ultra running. So I had to come back. And that, and last year I got lost. So I just had to come back and see what I could actually do if I took a right instead of a left. And and this race is awesome because you get it's almost 3 different sections, and you get the best of 3 different worlds. You get the trail, you get that flat, almost like marathon feel, and then you get those hilly back roads that I almost grew up starting running on. So it's just, I love the layout of the race in general.
Definitely.
Time out. Let's back up though. 1 year of ultra running. I think it's easy for a lot of us to forget, especially Sarah, because you've run, several ultras now at this point, but it's only been a year.
Yeah, it feels like it's been longer because I have done more. And I mean, I know that ultra running is different, but at the same time, I've been running for so long that it was almost just it was almost like not the same thing, but when you jump to the marathon distance, just this was a lot more than that.
Yeah, and kind of talk about, you mentioned it briefly, but for our viewers that don't know, you did mention you got lost last year. Talk about how that happened and kind of how that ended up. Just give a little recap of your 2021 race, in short story form.
Well, I got lost for many reasons. One, I'm just bad at directions and just knowing where I'm at in general. I'm sorry, Jackson's giving me the toy right now. Not done, but and I was kind of following a guy ahead, and he seemed very sure that you were supposed to take a left instead of a right. It was right where the trail section had started, and I didn't know any better, and he seemed very confident. So I'm like, I'm just gonna follow you. And so then the group behind me also followed me. So it was a domino effect. We got lost. We added a couple extra miles on a pretty rocky trail, and then it fit us back out at the bottom of pretty difficult climb. So My first ultra was great, but it was also, I did all like the first timer mistakes.
Yeah, Nick, kind of going off like the first time mistakes you kind of make in a race. I feel like we've all kind of had those moments. Kind of talk about like what mindsets like I guess like kind of what your thoughts are kind of hearing that.
Yeah, I think it's super common and it's really easy. I don't think even just for first timers, anybody out there running on trails, it's really easy to get kind of locked in with somebody else. And I think what we all do is we run for a little while and we're hoping to see a trail marker, and then we kind of get in our head and we're like, well, maybe there'll be one right up ahead. We'll go just a little bit farther and a little bit farther. And unfortunately for Sarah's case, I think once they realized the mistake, um, it was easier just to jump back on the course where they already knew, and almost shorter distance just to go back that way rather than to backtrack to where, and eventually, I think, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of go back to the same spot, the same road that or trail that you'd hopped off of.
Yeah, exactly. It was just right at the bottom of a climb that we had just done.
Yeah, no, that's a super tough point to get lost on race day. But coming into this year's race, I really want to spend a couple minutes here before we like do a deep dive on the races. I want to know so much about like your training leading up to this race for this year. You've done a couple different events, and we've highlighted a couple of those on different shows. Talk about how you use races to train for JFK and just kind of your progression as you went through 2021.
So in the summer of 2021, I ran Leadville, and that was quite the experience. It was my first time ever at altitude, which was a super fun, but also a shock to the system. And then I remember right after that race, I was in the airport. Sorry, Jackson's gonna look crazy. And I was in the airport and I texted Mike and I was like, can I run JFK like this year? Like, I really want to do well at that race. So it was from the airport in Leadville, like that we started this plan. And, um, you know, different runs in the summer, just bigger long runs. But then I think it was about 5 weeks until JFK, I ran the Columbus half marathon, which is a completely different distance and race in general. And I didn't really taper much for that. Just had more of a down week, and I actually ended up PRing in the half marathon. So I kind of, that was almost like a confidence boost and a good training run leading into JFK. And I think I had a couple of my highest mileage weeks the month before JFK, and I felt pretty good and had some good bigger long runs. So it all just helped build my confidence, and of course my strength and endurance, but more than anything, the 5 weeks leading to JFK, it was just a big confidence boost.
Sarah, what do you think is the difference, versus those, several years post collegiately where you were training for the roads exclusively, versus now? Is it volume? Is it specific workouts? Is it, kind of more of a periodized training schedule, or going from block to block, or just confidence? What do you think it is?
I feel like it's a lot more like focused on my long runs. I'm spending more time on my feet, and I'm spending that time on the trail too. Really, the biggest difference, and I have done more higher mileage weeks than I have in the past. Longer strength workouts rather than just like focusing on speed, although that's also incorporated. But just longer strength workouts that I probably haven't done in the past, but mainly just a lot of time on my feet that I haven't done before.
Talk a little bit about that, what you mean by strength workout too, because I think I know what you mean, but a lot of trail runners I think might think you're talking about weightlifting, but talk a little more specifically about what that means.
Just either tempo runs that are like 20 to 30 minutes, or steady state runs that are 20 to 30 minutes, and like maybe 3 sets of those. And of course I do those on the Grandview Hills because that's just about as hilly as it gets, close to home and after work. But yeah, just more of a tempo based workout.
Yeah, absolutely. Those hills are great too. You know, especially they kind of mimic what the trails do in Ohio, or at least in the East, where they're just kind of going up and then you're going back down and then going up and then going back down.
Exactly. And it's like a mile away from my apartment. And so after
Yeah.
work, and I'm just trying to, get my run done and get to bed at a decent time. It's super nice to just pop over to the hills and go up and down a bunch.
Yeah, no, going back a little bit, you mentioned that you do incorporate speed work as well. And our first chat question is going right off that from Eric Anderson. And he asks, how much speed work do you do in a normal week?
So it's almost um like a period time. Like when I first start a training block, I do a lot more of that um VO2 max and the 2 to 3 minute range of going pretty hard, where I'm effort is high, and doing different things like that. So shorter and quicker at the beginning of the training block, and then growing that time. The time of the interval gets longer, and then the intensity might get a little less, and that just gradually gets higher and higher until the last set of like the training block is more of that longer 30-minute steady state.
Yeah, no, it's cool to kind of hear about your periodization and kind of how things kind of progress through your training block. Kind of one question I have, and a lot of trail and ultra runners don't love doing, as much speed work. They just want to go out there and kind of do the long runs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But obviously you've had success at taking your speed work very seriously in your training. Talk about the mentality of these workouts. What tricks do you do? I know you have the background from cross country and track, but if you could give a tip or mentality tip to someone who's super not excited to get out there on a Tuesday night and do a quicker workout, what advice would you give them and to kind of get through it? And
I personally, I love like the feeling of the speed workouts and that intensity. So that kind of gets me excited, and just to see what like my body can do, and kind of like how I can get the pace down. But just to stay motivated, because honestly, after work, I'm gonna be honest. There's times where I'm struggling to get out the door and get started, and even after a warm up, I'm almost dilly dallying around doing drills and just like trying to get myself like motivated to get started. And just knowing that if I don't do this, if I don't go out there with a good effort, it's not going to benefit me at all. Like I'm doing this like purely to benefit myself. And if I'm going to work to try to do well in these races, it's going to take those rough Tuesday or Wednesday nights that it's not going to be super fun, but it's all about the big picture, really.
yeah, no, that's an incredible perspective. It's often not just one workout, but it is kind of it's taking the whole training approach throughout the whole block, and so that's awesome to hear. Let's start our JFK 50 deep dive for this year's race. Let's just start off. Before the race, what was kind of going through your mind, confidence level. What do you think about the field and some people that you kind of maybe have raced with last year? Kind of just talk about what were the vibes like going into the race this year.
Well, I saw the article about the race, and I kind of did a little bit of research about who was going to be there and who everyone was. And also, I knew a few people that were in the race the previous year, and I just knew that it was good. There was a deep and like just talented field of women. So I knew that on any given day, I could be in that top 3 spot, or I could be anywhere in the top 10. Like it was going to be a toss up. And that in itself is both exciting and also, kind of scary. Like the fact that like I could hit my goal of being in the top 3, or I could be 10th. And in a field of women like that, like that's nothing to be upset about. But I would be upset if, I didn't hit exactly my goal. So very exciting to be pushed by those women, and to have the goal of placing high, but it was also kind of just scary. I knew it was gonna be hard.
Was it more of a feeling like you were jumping in, like ready to race whoever was going to be? I mean, I think you have to run within yourself, of course. But were you focused more on like thinking about what kind of splits you could run based on last year? I mean, I know your race didn't go perfectly all the way through last year, but were you thinking more about time and pace and splits, or were you thinking about just kind of stay in the mix?
A little bit of both. So Mike and I had a conversation kind of about a race plan prior to, like, I think it was on like the Monday before, and definitely had some pace goals. Like you can split it up into about 3 different sections. You have that trail section for the first 15, and then of course the long marathon-ish distance, and then the hilly back roads. So I mean, I split my watch at those 3 sections just to see my pace, and kind of had like a ballpark of this is what I was at last year at these sections. And Mike had broke down the race for me, and this, would be maybe a goal time to be at the 15-mile mark starting the canal, and then on the canal maybe starting out at a certain pace and then trying to like work my way down, and then at that point the time to be at the road. And also at the same time factoring in like I wanted to be in contact, but also you never know what someone's going to do on race day, so you kind of have to have that time goal and also still knowing that you want to stay in contact, so sometimes you have to tweak one or the other depending on the race.
Yeah, and so you're not going to say it, but I'll say it. So at what point did you realize that you were ahead of what Mike was predicting for you, and what was your mentality then?
It was before the 15-mile mark. And honestly, I try not to think about it. Like I was running with one of the other women, and I think we had like kind of chatted about the pace for a second, and she's like, yeah, we're quicker than the winner last year already at this point. And I was like, I don't think this is where I'm supposed to be right now, but this is fine. I'm just gonna ride this out. I mean, I was still not, I mean, I wasn't in first or second at that point. So, and I felt clearly it was early in the race. I felt fine, but I tried to not let that have a negative or like freak out effect, but it was pretty early on when I realized that.
So kind of take us through what that was like. You kind of hinted at it earlier, running with that competitive field of women at this race. But, what spot were you at in the first 13 miles or so? Like, were you up at high as first or down as low as 10th, like you kind of mentioned? Like, where were you in the field and how did things kind of shake out in those first 15 miles?
So when the race, when the gun went off or the start, I just wanted to be in a pack of women for as long as I could, really. And there was actually a front pack, and I was in the second pack. But there was a couple women ahead from the start, and then a good group of like four or five of us going up that first climb. And I kind of stayed with them, and then there was a few of us that broke off. So I maybe was in like fourth or something like that, going into, I guess you could call it like a bike path before the trail. And then going up the climb before you get to the trail, I found myself in first briefly, and that was the only time that I ever was going up that climb. And I kept telling myself I should not be here right now. I just got up the climb, and then on the trail, kind of settled back in. And I think I'm not sure who all was ahead of me at that point. But I think I was in like a fourth, third, maybe on the trail. And then when we got to the towpath, I was in fourth at the start of the towpath.
So kind of like talk about like what was that feeling like, kind of exiting the trail section, hitting the towpath. Now you've got 26 miles here to kind of, it's the heart of the race for JFK 50, I would say. Kind of talk about, how did you handle the early part of it? When did you decide to make a move that kind of eventually came, and just kind of talk about that section?
So on that section, when I first started it, the women, I was in fourth. So the three women were kind of in their own little group because on the trail section, I actually fell and I hit my knee. So I ended up taking the last 2 miles kind of just easier and more cautious, which I lost that contact with him, but I've tried to not freak out and have that affect me. I thought just gradually try to catch up with the other group. And then I'm not sure what mile it was. Maybe it was around the 25, 26. Maybe it was even before, when Sarah had caught up to me at that point on the towpath, and she had passed me. And then I was sitting in fifth for a good while, and I was by myself. And there was definitely a low point because I hadn't seen any of the other women up ahead for a while, and I knew I was in fifth. And there was a moment where I'm like, I mean, this just might be the place that I get today. Like, I knew this is gonna be a tough field. Like, I'm just gonna have to ride this out. Like, I don't see anyone else, and I don't see myself catching up to anyone. So I think even like when I looked at my splits, there might have been a couple miles that were a little bit slower at that point, because I think that's where like mentally I got a little bit down. And then I kind of luckily I was able to kind of switch gears and just like tell myself, okay, well, I still want to be like really proud of the time that I run. And there's still quite a bit of race left. Like, I need to go, and like someone's got to come back. At least one person's got to come back. And then it like everything happened just super quickly, like to the point where I was almost in shock. Like, I think it was mile 35. And I'm rambling a little bit because this all happened so quickly that I'm still trying to piece together exactly what happened. But I think it was about mile 35 that I went from being by myself to, it was almost like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's three. It was 3 and 4. And I'm like, okay, like, do not try to catch them in 800 meters, like, gradually do it. And there was 1 mile that was a little bit quicker. And even though I told myself, I think I just got really excited and I kind of took off. And I caught up to them. And then within the next mile, there was like second. And I was again in shock. I'm like, okay, do not sprint to catch this person. You need to gradually get them. But my excitement took over a little bit. And then at the last aid station where your crew's at, that's where I was in second, and I was just in shock. Like, I don't know what's happening.
So I like even hearing you explain it. You're just kind of talking about like fourth, third, second, and for those listening, like those are some pretty big ultra runners in our realm that you're going past there. You're going past people who are sponsored trail runners, and you're going past the likes of Devin Yanko, who's run a really fast time, and then of course, I mean, I know Sarah Cummings from last year, and she ran an incredible second half of that race. If I'm not mistaken, she was with you when you made the wrong turn last year too.
Yeah.
So that means she ran like 25 minutes or so faster than you last year through the back half of the race.
Yeah.
But I think as we learned that didn't really happen this year. Of course, she was fast and she ended up winning, but you were able to kind of stick with her. Was that going through your mind at all? Were you thinking about the other people, or were you thinking about them purely as just fourth, third, second, first?
I think it all happened so quickly that I was thinking about place. It was almost like afterwards where that all like hit me a little bit. But it was one of those things. I was so like set on, I'm just probably going to get fifth for the day. Don't let someone else catch you. Maybe try to like catch someone else. And then all of a sudden it was like, I went from fifth to second, and I'm like, I guess I'm here. Like, I don't know how this happened. So it was definitely placed at that point in time.
Did you know at any point in, say, the final 13 miles or so when you made that move into second place, how far up Sarah was at that point?
Yeah, I saw her, but I also know Sarah from the year before, and I saw her, and I knew I felt good, but I mean she was moving in front of me, so of course, you know, like I was trying to push it, but not getting discouraged because like Sarah was moving.
So kind of take us through those last 10 miles there. I mean, you kind of mentioned you came off this high of, passing everyone, moving into second place, but, how did you end up holding on, and then kind of talk about that relationship between, pushing to go for the win and then also not getting past and blowing up at the end?
Yeah, so when I got through the canal, and I got to the road, the hilly back roads, and I saw Sarah, because I mean it's like windy and twisty, so you can see up ahead for a decent amount. And I saw Sarah, but she was up ahead, and I thought to myself, like I'm gonna push, these are 8 miles, like it's not a whole lot of the race, anything can happen, so I need to push. But I also didn't want to do something where I pushed too hard for like a couple miles, and then just like the wheels would fall off, and then I would lose that second spot. So I was almost like gambling with myself, like how far can I push that I know that I can still finish these last 8 miles, hold second, and but try to inch myself a little bit closer, just in case for some reason she maybe had a rough patch that last road section. But more than anything, I wanted to hold that second spot because I didn't know what was happening behind me. I didn't know how close anyone was. And I just did not want to have to come to a situation where the last 2 miles I was feeling rough and like walking it in.
Definitely, and kind of going off that, take us through, what the finish kind of meant to you, kind of the emotions that going into it. Second place. When did it kind of realize that, hey, this is where I'm finishing on my 1 year, anniversary of kind of jumping into the trail and ultra running community?
And for like a lot of most races, I never try to get like super excited about any place or time until I almost like can see the finish line, or at least I know like my body's feeling okay at the last mile. Like, okay, you can get a little excited now. Like, you're feeling okay. You're gonna make it. So I think it was the last mile. I was still feeling pretty good. My pace was not dropping a whole lot. So I looked back a little bit, and I felt like I had second. So that's whenever I was just, I don't know, I was just so proud of myself, because that's not something at the time, wasn't something that I had imagined for myself, I guess, which kind of sounds bad. But just, it wasn't the goal for this year, at least. And to finish second, I think it was then that where I realized who all was in the race, that it wasn't just a place anymore. So just ultimately, I was super proud of myself, and also relieved that the finish was close by. And I just worked, like I pushed myself really hard for 50 miles, and it was almost like a pat on the back, like you did this, you did it, you're almost there.
Was there fist pumping, tears? What was it like at the finish line?
I think I feel like when you think about a race and that you're about to run, and you think about how you're going to finish, if you finish the way that you do, and all the emotions that you would feel, or at least maybe this is how I get through some of my dark cold runs by myself after work, just like trying to imagine myself in the place that I want to be in the race, and in that finish line feeling. And how I would react. And it's nothing like how I like picture it. Like I think there's going to be tears and all of like the fist pumps. And really, I'm just keeping like some like really struggle smile because I'm so tired and like my hands are on my knees and I'm just, I don't know, kind of in shock, like looking around, like, can I sit down? But it was all there, like internally, but physically, what I was able to like react was just a smile and a sit down on the ground.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that means you literally left it all out on the course, and that's definitely admirable. One thing we did see, on social media was, a photo afterwards with you and Sarah. Kind of talk about like, the conversations you had or what the emotion was like, having after what you guys both went through last year to kind of talk about like, finishing 1-2 this year.
Oh, it was. I mean, we had talked earlier on in the race, like just we were almost trying to, redeem ourselves for last year, and she was at the finish line, and just immediately as I finished, she gave me a hug, and I think that's what's great about like running and ultra running in general, as you're not just doing this like by yourself, like during the race, like you're out there and you meet people, and it's just an emotional roller coaster that you're going through with other people as well, and you're like battling this out like with others, and you need those other people, whether it's someone in front of you to push you along, like you need those people to run the race or else we wouldn't have races. So it's just nice to celebrate at the finish line with someone that also felt the same way last year and kind of went through the same thing.
And this is one of the most historical 50-mile races in the whole country, and if even probably one of the most competitive too, outside of maybe Lake Sonoma. And you and Sarah were able to put down the second for her and the fourth fastest all-time times on that course. Talk about what that means to you, and have you done some research into some of those people that you ran faster than, because they are legitimate runners?
I haven't really like looked into that much, but just being able to finish like, and that wasn't something that I knew that I was doing until afterwards when they like announced it. But it gives me like confidence and also like hope, and it just really like fired up to well, sign up for another race soon. And just it's exactly what I need to almost, I don't know, it's like a motivation thing to get me through again those runs that maybe are a little bit harder afterward. Just to think about something like this, that like I did this, like what could I do if I push harder or if I get through these like rough, like tough days. So it's just got me fired up.
A lot of those runners too, they're not living in Grandview, Ohio either. So is that something you're thinking about at all? Potential relocations in the future? I know Wes and I are already biased because we're out here in the mountains.
Going off of that, I do want to mention, Sarah Cummings did live in New York City for multiple years, in her running career, and then moved out to Park City and kind of does what she does now. But is that in the works?
I mean, I would love to. Like, if I was given an opportunity, I would love to move somewhere like that. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say on it other than that. It's definitely not something that I'm opposed to.
I'll say from experience, you make that opportunity though.
We talked about this at Leadville. I know.
Sometimes you just gotta go too, like 3-day notice, like, from experience, like sometimes you just gotta go out there.
Yeah.
Well, there's something to be said and respected too about, being able to do it and do it from more of a pure fitness standpoint, like you're doing, living in Columbus specifically. I mean, even in Ohio, there are 4 or 5 other places I could think of that you could live, that would be probably more advantageous to trail and mountain running specifically, but it's impressive for sure.
Thank you. And it does make it harder, and it definitely is something on my mind how much easier and how much more fun it would be to live in a place where there's like a playground out my back door. I mean, it does make it harder when I'm driving on a long run day, maybe an hour, hour and a half. Definitely worth it. It's nice to get a different scenery, but it's a longer day.
Yeah, so kind of like changing the gears a little bit. You back on Originators Live number 52, your most recent appearance. You mentioned that you were in the best shape of your life and that the strongest that you've ever been since you started running. Looking back on that statement now, how does that change, or just what are your thoughts about that moving forward?
I feel like I feel stronger than I did then, which is exciting, and I just want to keep building on that. I mean, I I'm excited that even in other like ultra running has helped in other um races and distances as well. Like I ran a half marathon PR 5 weeks before, and I I mean I think that's from the strength that and the endurance and all of the ultra type of training that I've been doing. So I'm just excited to see not only how the ultra running excels and what I can do in that, but just other like personal little goals of like a 5K time or like a half marathon time or little things like that that are like personal to me too.
Talk
Do you have
talk
any?
more.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah, yeah, talk more a little bit about that. Like, because I feel like, was this a mindset that you were easily able to adapt once you like dove into the trail and ultra running scene? Because, having that cross country and track background, I assume that it was kind of like you were so focused on speed your whole life and, going fast at these shorter distances. And, you think like once you start running ultras, like, oh, I'm going to lose all my 5K fitness. I'm going to lose all my half marathon fitness. And, this is a big thing for a lot of people are concerned about, kind of entering from the speed world into the ultra running scene. Talk a little bit about how you manage that relationship in your running.
So you definitely don't have to lose your speed. I feel like I feel like both complement each other. And I was just thinking about this the other day actually. So as long as you're doing your workouts and your speed work and you're incorporating all of that along with the trail running, it doesn't have to mean that you're going to lose your speed. And I feel like almost like physically as well, like I'm getting more elevation and longer runs on top of a speedier Wednesday or something like that. But mentally for me too, it's so nice to not just be so laser focused on I need to run this pace, this pace, this pace. This defines everything is running this pace, or I ran this pace in a workout but I need to run this pace in a race, and just try being so laser focused on pace can almost drive you just like insane, or at least for me. So it's been so nice to have a race where, I mean, yeah, like JFK, like there's a lot of pace that you think about, but just trail running in general, you're not as much focused on pace. It's more about effort, and then you switch gears to the road, and then you can think about your pace. Like I'm balancing that out really well, where I'm enjoying running more, and I'm just doing better in general. Like my half marathon that I ran it smart for me compared to how I've done that type of running before, and I PR'd, and I don't think that's a coincidence from when I like started ultra running. I PR'd in the half marathon, and even in my turkey trot that I did, I ran my turkey trot the fastest I ever have. So I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, and I think it's a great reminder for a lot of people. Maybe just getting started, or having hesitations about kind of doing longer distances, is they don't want to give up on the fast stuff when they're young. And I think you've especially proven that you can do both at an extremely high level. So that's been awesome to see. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about what's next. I mean, year two, it's going to be an incredible one. We already know, but what do you have on the horizon? And is JFK year three gonna happen? Talk to us about what's next for Sarah Beale.
I would love to return to JFK, depending on like where races are in general, or like my training cycle. But I love JFK, so I thought about it as soon as I finished, how I would love to come back and try to do this and this like better or faster. Which I should probably just focus on this race right now, but I love that race. But so I decided, I was Mike's idea, but I quickly took to it. I'm running 100K in Texas next month, so I'm just kind of training through, and I'm doing that next month. And then after that, not sure what the rest of 2022 will look like, but that's how I'm going to kick it off.
Yeah, I kind of heard that's a kind of a smaller race. What race is it, and what's kind of the intention there, going down to Texas for a 100K race?
I think I'm saying this right. Bandura. Yeah. Yep. I'm just learning about this race because clearly I'm still new to all of this. But yeah, I'm hearing that it's a really small race. So.
Big race, and it's a flatter, not super flat, runnable race that you use your speed.
I'm excited for it. I'm just hoping that my legs can carry me just another month or so.
Is it golden ticket chasing? I mean, like if you go down there, you win the golden ticket. I'm assuming you're going to Western, and that'll be your debut 100 possibly in 2022.
If for some reason that would happen, which I want to put myself up in it. But I know that there's going to be a lot of really talented people there, so I don't want to overshoot maybe how I would do, but I want to put myself up in it. But yeah, if that were to happen, I would get ready for a 100-miler.
Yeah, no, that would be incredible. Arlen Glick did what he did at his golden ticket race a couple weeks ago, and it's cool to see another Ohioan. And the fact that we could have a couple of you guys, Ohioans, out there winning golden ticket races to get into Western states is something that's truly special. But if some crazy reason that doesn't happen, or you decide Western actually doesn't fit in my calendar after I win a golden ticket, is there a 100-mile potential still on your calendar for 2022?
Yeah, Mike actually just texted me and asked if I was interested in running a 100-miler in 2022, and I said I would be. He wants me to possibly put in for the lottery of Leadville. But other than that, I don't know. We're gonna kind of plan that out soon.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And do you think that your experience, doing the 50 there this past summer would bode well? And do you think that those lessons that you've kind of learned, like maybe you'd attack things a little differently, or kind of go into it with basically the same mindset?
Maybe the same mindset. I just wish that if it were to be possible to go out there a little bit longer, just because I mean it was a shock to my system to try to run at altitude. It was probably one of the hardest things that I've done, but super fun. Just very hard to go out there the day before the race.
Yeah, no, definitely. Kind of one of our questions that was submitted to us before the show, and I kind of thought it was kind of interesting. A lot of runners, will get different, workouts or long runs that kind of, end up changing their goals on race day. You feel super confident after a long run, 3 weeks out, and you're like, oh, I can take off another 10 minutes or so here or there. Did you have a workout or a long run like that kind of made you reevaluate your goals going into JFK this year?
So I did have a workout that really boosted my confidence. I wouldn't say I mean, maybe kind of change my goals a little bit. Like I feel like I can do really well. I feel like I'm in, you know, good shape for where I'm at right now. But I don't know if it was maybe like 3 weeks, I think maybe possibly 3 weeks before JFK that I went to the Shawnee State Forest, and I did the hangover loop twice. So it was about 25 miles, and I had to work out like a couple, maybe it was just one steady state. Anyways, I had a steady state in that run, and it went well. I mean, I felt fantastic. It's the best that I felt at hangover, and then just being at hangover in general, doing that loop. That's actually where I came to do my visit whenever I was planning, you know, trying to see if I wanted to go to Shawnee or not. That was the first run I did with the team. I don't know if that's the best recruiting tool because it was hard, but for me it worked because I loved that. But it's a little sentimental too. So there was a combination of how, you know, just being there and being able to run that loop a couple times, and then it just went really well. I felt fantastic. So I had a lot of confidence. But I will say with that, I had a lot of confidence that that went really well. That was at the end of one of the bigger weeks that I've had in my career. And then the next week, it's so interesting how running goes. Like I had a pretty big high in confidence and one of the highest mileage weeks. And then the next week I was a little low because I felt the effects of that. And my body, I mean, just in general, I felt pretty rough, pretty tired. I felt like I was kind of slugging it through some runs. So I kind of went from here to here, and then race week I felt better, so I kind of got back up here. So it almost leveled me out a little bit. But it's just interesting how we can go from here to here just within a couple days, but also trying to remind ourselves that, you know, that's just running.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many confidence swings that just come, you know, whether it be in life or in training, you know, that kind of just happen on, you know, a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. You know, sometimes on a Monday you feel great for your Monday mile. The next Monday you go out, you feel like you never run before in your life. So, you know, I've been there multiple times before. Kind of, you did mention, you know, how important the Shawnee trails have been in your development as a trail runner and just, you know, your whole, you know, running career, you know, how important those have been. You know, we don't have to put 100 and the Shawnee Forest in the same sentence. You know, we talked about 100 milers previously, but, you know, the Shawnee 50 is a race that is going to take place for the years to come. Is this a race that interests you?
I mean, I would love to do it just because it's the Shawnee State Forest. But I will say I have a lot of fun working at the aid stations too. So you know, it would have to fit pretty well for me to. And that sounds so silly, but I love working the aid stations. I see a lot of people that I know, and that's really fun. But also, it'd be really fun to race too. So I don't know how to answer that right now, but maybe.
Yeah, no, I know
But
Nick.
it runs into the JFK, you know, timing, I think a little bit too close right now too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. So it's almost nice just to go there and get excited watching other people do well and working those aid stations. And I don't know, that's almost a good prep for me for JFK too. Is just working the aid station.
What kind of races are more attractive to you, Sarah? Like, what are you looking for? I know you're taking a lot of Mike's advice, and you know, I guess he's got okay recommendations, but what are you finding that you're drawn to about the races you're going to? I mean, is it all still just so new that you love it all, or are you starting to find that you like, you know, certain styles and certain, I guess, vibe that you feel at races?
So for the most part, it's been kind of just letting Mike take the wheel on this. And he says this would be a really good one to do. And I'm like, okay, sure. But I mean, I love the JFK layout. Like I will say that's probably one of my favorite races, just because you get a little bit of everything. But I mean, other than that though, like I just like going to races where there's like good competition and also, I mean, Leadville was fun because it was Leadville and the views and that plays a little bit of role into it too. But mainly just I would say the competition.
Yeah, you probably saw a lot more people along the Leadville course too than you're used to seeing in trail runs or trail races.
Exactly. It was so much fun, except for it was really hard.
Yeah, kind of going off that competitive races, how you kind of are drawn to those. I'd be remiss, and someone also commented before this on social media. Mr. Brian Poland asked, make sure you ask Sarah, is she going to return to the Super Bowl Trail Championships in 2022?
Well, I'll have to talk to Mike about that one, but I love that race, so probably. It was fun, and it was also fun racing Mike.
Yeah, Brian, I'll be there next year too, so just count on that as well. But yeah, no, let's kind of dive into our quicker questions now that we kind of like to end the show with. And we did reach out to Ridge Runner Nation here for some suggestions. And so this is the first time we kind of did this because you've been on the show so many times now. And so our first quick question actually is just along those lines. How does it feel to be the Ridge Runner's most frequent guest on Ridge Runners Live?
I feel very honored. I think Jackson's, he's going to have me beat soon. But no, it's nice to chat with you guys, and it's fun just to chat, and also the community and how big Ridge Runners Nation has gotten. It's really cool.
Yeah, and then kind of going off that, obviously this is a perfect transition to the next question, paper or plastic?
Paper. I don't know.
I love that. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good one. This is why paper? Turtles? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Turtles.
So what was your favorite section of the JFK 50 miler?
Honestly, the last 8 miles. I love the hilly country back roads.
And then what is your least favorite section of that race?
Probably the second half of the canal, because the first half it's fine, like you can pick up the pace, and then maybe even the last 6 miles, I'm just over it, and I'm like, I'm ready to see something new. I'm sick of this straight and flat. I need something else. Yeah, the last 6 miles for sure.
So we didn't even talk about this, but let's just take a minute or two to kind of dive into it. What was your nutrition like for this race, and kind of how did that hold up throughout the day?
My stomach did great, which and I knew that if something were to go south with that, then it was just going to not be the best day for me. But I had my spring gels. I had some Tailwind in my my handheld, and I grabbed some of the drinks along the way, and I only I limited myself to, I think I only had 1 Coke, which last year I made the mistake of basically getting a Coke every aid station on the canal, and that was another mistake of mine. So I told myself I was only allowed to have 1. The potato chips, and I think I had maybe 3 spring gels, which for me kind of less is more. I know for some people hearing that I only took 3 might seem kind of crazy, but the more that I have, the more it just doesn't sit well with my stomach. So I kind of have to have that good balance.
But you took 3 on the first 13 miles of the race, right?
Oh yeah. On the first 2 miles.
Yeah. Not over the whole 50. That's not possible, right?
No.
I can confirm there's a direct relationship with the amount of Cokes you consume during a race and your finishing time. They both go up at the same rate.
Yeah. I realized that last year.
It tastes good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It just doesn't sit well with your stomach at mile 40.
I'm guessing some of those later aid stations, though, you were going pretty quick through those because it was a little bit more urgent at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I did make a quick stop at the last cruise station, but not for very long. Unlike last year where I stopped and and took my time. But at that point I was like, I gotta go. Like I've gotta go. So I honestly, the last cruise station, I don't know if this is kind of stupid, but I ditched my handheld. I'm like, I'll be fine. I just need everything out of my hands. I just need to go.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you have a favorite aid station throughout on the course at this
All the
race?
aid stations were super fun. I don't know if I have a favorite. Maybe that last cruise station, just because I know I'm almost done with the canal, and the next time that there's a pretty big crowd is going to be the finish. So it's exciting.
And then another final quick question to wrap up tonight's show is what is your go-to training snack and then also race snack as well?
Like training snack as in
I guess like during a run, like, yeah.
during a run. I mean, I really like drink during a run. Before a run, it's really a toss-up. I'm a big fan of hummus and pretzel crisps. I don't know if this is actually a question asked, but I just throw this out there too. Sometimes a piece of chocolate before I head out the door. It's a big toss-up. And then what was the other question?
During and after.
After is definitely tacos. Hands down. Tacos are a burrito.
And Jackios.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, that's a good one.
I have one quick question for you too.
Mm-hmm.
Super shoes or no super shoes?
Like during the race?
Yeah.
Or in general.
Just to race with.
Oh, I mean, I didn't wear I wore like the Saucony flats during this race. But for my half marathon, I did wear the super shoes. And I will say
We caught that photo.
I know. It was very bright in everyone's face that I wore the super shoes for that. But yeah, I will say, I mean, they definitely they're definitely help. Like I feel a lot better going a certain pace that I wouldn't necessarily feel the same with a regular flat, but that's either here nor there.
Nick Voss always coming in asking the gear questions. It's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you again so much for joining us tonight. It was incredible to kind of hear about your race recap and what 2020 kind of was, or 2021, excuse me, was for you. Obviously, so many incredible performances, and we're excited to see what you do next year. Good luck at Bandera. It's going to be awesome to kind of follow you along all day, and we're going to be pulling for you to go out there and absolutely win a golden ticket and toe the line next year at the Western States 100. We cannot wait to see it happen. Thank you again for joining us. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, we'll see everyone next time.